I missed my brother's wedding because I had a product launch the same weekend, and my family never let me forget it. That was 3 years ago. My brother. I'll call him by what he's always been to me, just my little brother, stood at the altar in a rented tux, and I was in a hotel conference room in Austin watching a demo go sideways on a projector screen. I sent a card. I sent a check. I called him that night from the hotel bathroom so my co-workers wouldn't hear me cry. He said it was fine. He said he understood. My parents said neither of those things. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand where I came from before you understand what happened last spring, because none of it makes sense without the full picture. I grew up in a 3 bedroom house in Columbus, Ohio. My dad worked at a distribution warehouse for 22 years. My mom did bookkeeping part time for a dentist's office and full time for our family, which meant she tracked every dollar that came in and quietly absorbed every dollar that went out on my brother without ever writing it down anywhere. My brother is 3 years younger than me. His name is the kind of name that gets called at graduation and makes a whole section of bleachers cheer. Mine got a polite clap from my parents and my aunt, who drove 2 hours to be there. I don't say that to be dramatic. I say it because it's true and because I spent a long time pretending it wasn't. From the time I was about 14, I understood my role in the family. I was the responsible one, the one who didn't need watching. My parents used to say it like a compliment. Oh, she just handled things. And I took it as one for longer than I should have. I handled my own school fees when I got to college by working 25 hours a week at a campus library. I handled my own car insurance at 19. I handled my own student loans, every single payment, starting 6 months after graduation while I was still sleeping on a futon in a studio apartment in Cincinnati, eating rice and frozen vegetables 5 nights a week. My brother handled things differently. His car insurance was paid until he was 26. His college tuition, 2 years of it plus a semester he had to retake, came from my parents' savings and 2 cash advances my dad took on a credit card I didn't find out about until much later. When he got his girlfriend pregnant at 24 and they decided to get married fast, my parents paid for the rehearsal dinner and gave them $3,000 toward a honeymoon in Cancun. I don't resent my brother. I want to be clear about that. He didn't design this system. He just lived inside it comfortably the way people do when no one ever asks them to notice it. I resented the invisibility of it, the way my parents talked about the family sacrificing and working together while meaning, specifically, me. I left Columbus at 22 with a computer science degree, $40,000 in student debt, and a job offer from a mid sized software company in Chicago that paid me $64,000 a year. I was the first person in my family to work in tech. My dad asked me what exactly I did, and I explained it 3 different ways, and he nodded each time with the expression of a man who has decided the conversation is over. I worked. That's the short version of the next 7 years, and it's also the accurate one. I worked in ways that didn't leave much room for anything else. I got promoted. I changed companies. I did a 2 year stint at a startup that failed spectacularly and taught me more than any job I'd had before it. I went back to a stable company, saved aggressively, built up my 401k, paid off my loans by the time I was 29. I lived in a 1 bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park that I loved and that I paid for myself and that felt every single morning when I made coffee and looked out the window at the street below, like proof that I had built something real. 2 years ago, I started my own company. Not a startup in the Silicon Valley sense, not chasing venture capital, not trying to disrupt anything, a consulting firm. I'd spent 7 years watching mid sized businesses make expensive software decisions based on bad advice, and I knew I could do better. I brought in my first client through a former colleague, then a second through a referral. By month 8, I had 5 clients and I had to hire my first contractor. By month 14, I had a team of 4 full-time employees and a client list that was generating just over $400,000 in annual revenue. I leased a small office in Rivernorth. I signed the lease myself. I made decisions every single day that I was solely responsible for, and that accountability was terrifying and also the most alive I had ever felt. I also finally moved into a condo I bought. Nothing extravagant. A 2 bedroom unit in a building in Wicker Park. $389,000, which I put $78,000 down on from savings I've been building for 4 years specifically for this purpose. I closed on it in October. I stood in the empty living room after the movers left, surrounded by boxes, and I cried a little. Not sad crying. The other kind. My parents came to visit that November. First time they'd seen the place. My mom walked through each room with this particular expression I know well. Not disapproval exactly. More like she was filing information away. My dad asked about parking. My brother and his wife couldn't make it because their youngest had a cold. My mom said the condo was PERIU, which she meant as a neutral observation and which landed somewhere below that. I thanked her anyway. At dinner that night, my brother called. He and his wife were having some financial trouble. They'd mentioned it vaguely a few months earlier, something about his hours being cut at work and some credit card debt they'd run up. My mom took the call in the kitchen. I could hear her drop to the register she uses when something is serious. She came back to the table and said my brother was really struggling. His wife had stopped working when their second kid was born and hadn't gone back yet. They were behind on rent. They'd maxed out 2 cards. I said I was sorry to hear that. I meant it. My dad looked at me and said, "You're in a good place now." I said yes. He said it would really mean a lot if you could help out. I said I'd think about what I could do. That was November. I sent my brother $2,000 in December, told him it was a gift, no strings. He thanked me with a text that said, the best, sis." My parents called separately to thank me too, and my mom said I had a generous heart, which felt good even though I knew even then that it was the beginning of something, not the end. I should have noticed the way that sentence worked. You're in a good place now. Not your brother needs help. Not we're worried. Just a quiet establishment of the logic that would come back later. Bigger, with paperwork. January was fine. February was fine. I was busy. We'd landed our biggest client yet. A regional hospital network that wanted us to audit their entire data infrastructure. And I was working 60-hour weeks and loving every minute of it, even when it exhausted me. My mom called in March. She said she and my dad were coming to Chicago in April and wanted to have a family dinner. My brother and his wife would be there too. She said it cheerfully, casually, the way you'd plan any normal visit. I said great. I offered to make a reservation somewhere. She said, actually, could we do it at my place? She said she liked the idea of a home-cooked meal together, the whole family. It had been so long. I said, sure. I spent 2 days cooking. I made a pot roast and roasted vegetables and my grandmother's apple cake, which takes 3 hours from start to finish. I set the table properly. I bought good wine. They arrived on a Saturday afternoon. My brother and his wife showed up 40 minutes late with both kids, who are 3 and 5, and who immediately needed snacks and the bathroom and someone to find the remote. The evening had the warm, slightly chaotic energy of family gatherings, and I let myself relax into it. I thought, this is what it's supposed to feel like. I hadn't had enough of this in recent years. We ate, the food was good, and everyone said so. My dad had 2 glasses of wine. My brother's wife, she's always been pleasant to me, a little guarded, but pleasant, asked about the business and seemed genuinely interested. The kids fell asleep on the couch around 8. After dinner, when I was in the kitchen plating the apple cake, I heard my parents and my brother talking in the dining room in lowered voices. Not arguing, consulting. I came back out with the cake and set it on the table, and my mum said, "There's something we want to talk to you about." I sat down. I remember thinking, in that specific way your brain does when it knows before you do, here it is. My dad spoke first. He said they'd been doing a lot of thinking about the family and about what it meant to support each other. He said my brother and his wife were in a very hard situation, and it wasn't getting better, that they'd had to borrow money from a friend, that they were looking at losing their apartment by summer, that the stress was affecting the kids. I said I understood that was really hard. My mom said, "We think the most practical solution would be for them to move in with you." I put my fork down. Not my parents' house in Columbus, which has 3 bedrooms and a finished basement. Mine. My two-bedroom condo in Chicago that I had saved for 4 years to buy. With two adults and two children under 5, I said, "You want them to move in here?" My mom said, "Just temporarily, until they get back on their feet. You have the space." I said I had a two-bedroom condo and that I worked from home 3 days a week and that I genuinely did not have the space for 4 additional people. My dad said, "You have a second bedroom." I said that bedroom was my home office where I ran the administrative side of my business, where I had a desk and two monitors and filing cabinets and a lock on the door for when I was on client calls. My brother said quietly, "We wouldn't be in the way." I looked at him. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the table. I said no. I said it as gently as I could while still meaning it completely. I said I loved him and I wanted to help, but having 4 people move into my home wasn't something I was willing to do, and I offered instead to help them find resources, financial counseling, assistance programs. Maybe I could help cover 1 more month of their rent while they figured out a plan. My mom's face did something then. It shifted, the warmth that had been in it all evening, through the pot roast and the wine and the compliments about the apple cake, drained out of it like water. She said, "After everything this family has done for you." I said, "What has the family done for me, Mum? Specifically?" She looked genuinely startled. Like the question was so bizarre it didn't compute. My dad said I was being selfish. He said that when family needs you, you show up. He said I'd been so focused on my career and my business and my apartment that I'd lost sight of what actually mattered. I sat there and I felt something I can only describe as a door closing. Not slamming, just quietly swinging shut and latching. I said, I paid for my own education. I paid for my own car, my own insurance, my own health care from the time I was 23. I've never asked this family for a single dollar. I sent my brother $2,000 in December as a gift. No conditions. I cooked for 2 days to have you here tonight. I am not selfish. I am a person with a home and a business that I built from nothing. And no one is moving into my home without my consent. My brother's wife looked at the wall. My brother looked at the table. My parents looked at me. My dad said very slowly, "If you won't help your brother, we'll have to help him ourselves. We'll remortgage the house." I said they should do what they needed to do. My mom said, "Or you could refinance your condo, pull out some equity, and loan it to your brother. You've owned it for 6 months." "It has equity. It's the obvious solution." I said it was not a solution I would be pursuing. My dad said if I didn't, they would tell every person in the family what kind of person I really was. He said they would make sure everyone knew that I had abandoned my brother when he needed me most. I said I thought dinner was over. They left 20 minutes later. My brother hugged me at the door, a real hug, quick and tight, and whispered, "I didn't ask for this." I believed him. That made it worse in some ways, not better. I sat on my kitchen floor for about 20 minutes after they left. Not crying, just sitting. The apple cake was still on the table. I hadn't had a piece. I texted a friend. She called me back immediately and let me talk for an hour. The next 2 weeks were quiet. I thought maybe that was the end of it. I thought the dinner had been the thing and now it was over. Then I got a certified letter. It was from a lawyer in Columbus. It informed me that my parents were pursuing a legal claim against me for the recovery of funds they had allegedly contributed to my professional development and career establishment. A figure they were claiming totaled $47,000 on the basis of an alleged oral agreement that these were loans, not gifts, and that repayment was expected once I was financially established. I read the letter 4 times. I took photos of it. I sent the photos to my friend and to my cousin who works in HR and has good judgment. Then I called an attorney. I want to say something here because I think it's important. I was scared. I don't want to narrate this like I was steady and calm and strategic the whole time because I wasn't. I was scared in the way you get scared when someone you love decides to become your adversary, when the architecture of your childhood gets reframed as a transaction, when you realize the people who were supposed to be in your corner are instead on the other side of a legal document. That's a specific kind of scared that lives in your chest and doesn't really leave even when you know logically that you're going to be okay. My attorney. I found her through a referral from a business contact, a sharp woman in her 50s who had the energy of someone who has seen everything and is not impressed by any of it, reviewed the letter, and was direct with me. She said all agreements of this kind are extraordinarily difficult to prove in court. She said the statute of limitations on many of the alleged loans had likely already passed. She said the claim was thin, the legal theory was weak, and that whoever had written the letter was either inexperienced or hoping I would settle out of fear. She also said something that I've thought about many times since. She said, let's look at the full picture. Let's look at everything, not just what they're claiming. So we did. We requested financial records. We documented my actual history, my student loan statements going back 11 years, my tax returns, my employment records, every dollar I had earned and every dollar I had spent on my own behalf. We built a picture that was complete and factual and which showed clearly what anyone paying attention already knew. I had received no meaningful financial support from my parents since the age of 18. What I had was what I had built. Then my attorney found something else. During the discovery process, it came out that my parents had taken out a home equity line of credit on their Columbus house 18 months earlier, $55,000, a significant portion of which had gone to pay down my brother's credit card debt and cover his family's rent for nearly a year. None of this had been disclosed to me. None of it had been framed as a loan to my brother. It had just been done quietly, while my mother called me on Sunday evenings and asked how work was going. They were, in the simplest terms, broke. And they had come to that dinner with a plan. My attorney sent a formal response to their lawyer outlining the weakness of the claim, the lack of documentation, the statute of limitations issues, and the potential for a counterclaim if they proceeded, specifically regarding a 2-year period when I was 19 and 20, when I co-signed a small personal loan for my dad at his request and he had made 3 late payments that had briefly damaged my credit. That was technically actionable. Their lawyer, from what I was told afterward, advised them to drop it. They dropped it. I didn't hear from my parents for 6 weeks after that. Then my mum called on a Sunday evening, same as always, and said, I hope you know we love you. I said I knew. She said, we got scared, your father and I got scared, and we handled it badly. I said, you send me a legal claim for $47,000. She was quiet. I said, I'm not going to pretend that didn't happen. I'm not going to act like things are normal. But I'm also not going to write you out of my life, because I don't think that helps anyone. What I need is for you to understand, really understand, that what you tried to do was a serious harm, not a misunderstanding, a choice. She cried. I let her. I said we could talk and we could try, but that I needed time and I needed them to respect the boundary I was drawing. My home, my business, my finances were mine. Asking was always okay. Pressuring was not. And legal action was a line that, if crossed again, would end things completely. She said she understood. My dad got on the phone. He said he was sorry. He sounded like a man who hadn't slept well in 6 weeks, which I believed because I recognized it. I hadn't slept well either. I told him I heard him. My brother texted me a few days later. He said he was sorry for how the dinner had gone. He said he'd been so deep in his own panic that he'd let things happen around him that he should have stopped. He said he was working with a credit counselor, that he and his wife had found a cheaper apartment outside the city, that things were slowly getting more manageable. He said, you don't owe me anything. I know that. I've always known that. I called him and we talked for an hour. Really talked. The way we used to when we were kids, and the dynamic hadn't calcified around us yet. He's a good person in a hard situation, and I love him. And I am not responsible for fixing what he needs to fix himself. I did not loan him money. I did not refinance my condo. I did not convert my office into a bedroom. What I did was this. 3 months after the legal claim was dropped, I refinanced my condo on my own timeline for my own reasons. Because rates had shifted favorably and it made financial sense. I got a better rate. I pulled $15,000 in equity that I put directly into the operating reserves of my business. The paperwork was clean and clear, and every single line of it had my name on it. My attorney sent me a congratulatory email. I took myself out to dinner that night, a nice place in the West Loop. Just me and a glass of wine and the ribeye I'd been wanting to try for months. And I sat there in the quiet and I thought about the 19-year-old who co signed a loan she didn't fully understand. And the 31-year-old who had just closed a refinance she had negotiated herself. I thought about my grandmother who died when I was 16 and who used to press money into my hand at holidays and whisper, "Put it somewhere they can't see it." I didn't understand what she meant then. I do now. I kept every document. I kept every document. My filing system would make a CPA cry with happiness. Every loan statement, every tax return, every bank record, every piece of certified mail, every email, every text that constitutes a paper trail. My parents and I talk on Sundays, it's careful. It's not what I wished it was when I was younger, but it's real, which is more than I had at a kitchen table last April. My brother is doing better. His wife went back to work part-time. He got a new position with better hours. The last time I saw him, we went to a Cubs game and ate bad hot dogs and complained about the bullpen, and it felt, for a few hours, like none of the rest of it had happened. It had happened, but so had this. I built my company. I own my home. I know exactly what I'm owed and what I owe, and those are two very different ledgers, and I keep both of them balanced. There's a moment I keep coming back to. Not the certified letter, not the phone call with my attorney, not even the dinner where everything cracked open. It's the moment I was 19 years old, standing at a bank counter, co-signing a personal loan for my dad because he asked me to, and I didn't know how to say no to a parent who needed something. I didn't understand the paperwork fully. I trusted that love was enough of a reason. That version of me did the right thing for the wrong framework. She was trying to be good, genuinely, sincerely trying, but she had confused goodness with compliance, and she would spend the next 12 years slowly learning the difference. What I understand now is that the way things unfolded had its own internal logic. Not fate, not punishment, not reward. Just cause and effect, playing out the way it always does when people make choices, and those choices accumulate over time. My parents made choices over many years. Choices about who got protected and who got leaned on, about what counted as a gift and what could quietly become a debt the moment it became convenient. Those choices didn't disappear. They built a structure, and eventually that structure couldn't hold its own weight. My brother made choices too, and I don't say that harshly. He's not a villain. But there is something that happens to a person when they are never asked to carry their own weight. Something that looks like ease on the surface and is actually a slow atrophy underneath. He is doing the harder work now, and I think he is better for it. And I mean that without any satisfaction. And I made choices. I chose to keep records. I chose to hire a professional instead of panicking alone. I chose to be honest about what I had and hadn't received, even when the honest answer made the dinner table go quiet. Those choices didn't feel powerful in the moment. They felt like survival, but they added up to something. I think about what it actually takes to build a life you can defend, not just financially, but in every sense. It takes a certain kind of integrity that nobody hands you. You have to decide, repeatedly and often quietly, that you would be honest about what is real even when a comfortable fiction is available. That you will do the work correctly even when the shortcut is right there. That you will not trade your future stability for present peace. It takes the ability to think clearly under pressure. Not brilliance, just the discipline to slow down when everything in you wants to react, to find the right information, to ask the right questions, to understand what you're actually dealing with before you respond to it. My attorney didn't save me. My records saved me. She just knew how to use them. And it takes the willingness to keep going when keeping going is genuinely hard, not dramatic suffering, just the ordinary, unsexy persistence of someone who shows up and does the work one more day even when they're tired and scared, and eating rice and frozen vegetables in a studio apartment and wondering if any of it will amount to anything. It does. That's the thing I would tell the 19-year-old at the bank counter. Not that life will be fair, because it won't always be. Not that family will protect you, because sometimes they won't. Just that the work is real, the records are real, and what you build honestly cannot be taken from you as easily as people think. I kept every document. I kept every document still.